All right, so let me start my recap for today. It was a decent day, 633. I messed up, so that limited my profits quite a bit. So let's start with my first trade, which is JD. So for JD, the problem I had with JD was that I did not pay enough attention to the opening range. So if you look at the 1 minute chart here, see. So this is the one. This is the from 43.97 to 45.05. That's the 5 minute opening range. Never broke the opening range. So I actually took two and a half trades that were losses because it never broke the opening range, and I was using an opening range breakout strategy. So for tomorrow, I need to watch out and probably demarcate where the opening ranges are. So which is at the 5 minute mark to make sure that there's an actual true opening range breakout before entering. So trade number 1, number 2, they went against me. Number 3 broke over VWAP. It was above all the moving averages. So I went long, but then I got stopped out on the drop. But then when I saw that it went back up, I went long again. And this time I took profit as it went up. And then I protected the profit as it showed weakness. And then it sort of consolidated. So this is over trading here. It was consolidating. And each time I went long, I pretty much exited at break even, and then I stopped. I just started to watch it because it was getting choppy at that area. And then when it lost the VWAP, lost all the moving averages, I went short, and then I took profit on the way down with a goal of hitting below $44, which was the previous day level. So I made profit on these trades over there. And then as it continued to trend downwards, at around 10:27-ish, I saw that it lost the moving averages. So I went short. It made a slight retracement back towards the moving average. So I had a tight stop loss there. So I stopped out. And then when I saw that it dropped again, I went short and then covered on my way down. It showed strength, and then I covered above break even to protect profit. It repeated that at 10:30 a minute later. It went up, hit the moving average, and then it immediately went down. So went short and then covered. I thought it was going to do that again, so I went short, but then it showed strength on the level 2, so I exited right before the pop. So that's when the stop loss protected my profit. But overall, I overtraded JD. I probably should not have played this stock simply because there was just too much volatility for it. So that's the trade of JD. The next one that I did the same mistake for opening range breakout was VTSM, where, as you can see, it did not break the opening range, the 5 minute opening range. So I think that's something I'm going to do moving forward, is after 5 minutes demarcate where the opening range is. So I thought it was going to drop. I shorted, and then it popped. So I got stopped out twice. After that, I sort of watched the stock. It broke VWAP. And then it also broke most of the moving averages. So over here, it broke the moving averages as well. So I saw that it was sort of forming this bull flag, but I entered a little descended from the 9 EMA, which the way I rationalized it was that it was okay because 1062 to 1050-ish. So that's a 12-cent distension, which isn't too bad. And then I added more at 759, 754. That's 5 cent, and that's 761 to 752-ish. So, and I forgot what the average true range is. Let's look up the average true range for this. It may be a little much actually for if the average true range is small. BTS. VSTM. VSTM. So yeah, the average range is 47, so it's actually not that bad, but it is kind of big for that. So maybe the better entry would have been if I waited for the pullback along the moving average here. When I verified that it's most likely not going to break below the 9 EMA. So it's a little risky here where my positions are. I should have probably just entered once and kept the position instead of adding more. But either way, it held, and then it went up towards, I had this pre-market level of 784, so I knew it was going to trend that way. So basically I just took profit along the way up. And then later on at around 1023-ish, the stock dropped below all these moving averages. It seemed to have formed a top here, so I was thinking it's going to do a top reversal towards VWAP, which it sort of did. So I went short once it broke the moving average, and then I covered on my way down. And as it started to show strength with a pop, I basically exited right before the break even to protect profit. So that's the two trades I did on VSM. And then next would be PTCT. So for PTCT, let's move this back a bit. What I did for PTCT is it was dropping the whole morning until 10ish, in which it could not form a new 5-minute low, and then when it formed the new 5-minute high, and I looked at the 1 minute. The 1 minute, it was above the two moving averages, so I went long, but it did a dip. So once it fall below the lower EMA, I think that was like a 20. I exited my position because I didn't want this to fall on me. I didn't want this to be just a pullback or retracement instead of a reversal. But eventually, it actually did a reversal towards VWAP. So the next 1 minute, it started going long. So what I did was I actually doubled up my position. I went long, and then I added more as L2 shows strength. It popped actually towards the moving average. I think that is either the 50 or the 200 moving average, which is a very strong moving average. So as it moved towards the 50 or 200 SMA, basically I exited my position because I knew the stock is probably going to be weak, and once it hit that is going to be a resistance level. So it's sort of that's what it did. It hit that level, it dropped, pulled back, it went above it slightly, and then it just tumbled again. So the second trade on PTCT, or the third trade on PTCT is once it dropped below both of those simple moving averages, the 50 and the 200, which are very strong moving averages. And I saw that it was consolidating below the two EMAs, and that's a consolidate towards it. I waited for the consolidation to pass, and then it showed weakness on level 2. And then on the 50, there's a 42.45 pre-market low level. I don't think it was going to hit that because it's just too distended. That's a $3 drop. But I knew I was going to move towards it simply because it lost all the resistance level. There's nowhere for it to go except down. So I shorted it, and then I covered my position as it dropped. So that's my trade for PTCT. And then for ROKU, so ROKU, I think my entry here is just spot on. If the VSTM entry would be like this, that would have been great. So ROKU, at around the 1037 mark, it started to trend back up. So all the drop before that from 1032 all the way to 1036 or to 1035 was simply just a retracement before trending upwards again. So I saw that it respected the 9 EMA level, so I went long, added more, and then covered on, and then sold on the way up. So that's the first trade. And the other thing too was it traded above the previous day level. So usually that's another good level of support or resistance. So that now that it popped above that, that was pretty good indication. And then above that, at the 45.84 level, there was another previous day level. So given the fact that there was support on the 1 minute chart, the 1 minute non-EMA, I felt pretty good about that. And then I can use a stop loss of just below the non-EMA as an exit for a stop loss. And then also on the 21 minute EMA, corresponded quite well with the previous day level, which is 45.11. If you look at the 20 EMA at my entry, it's about 45.12. So I was comfortable using both of those as a stop loss, depending on how liberal I was. And then I exited first trade, and then when it pulled back, I saw that it respected that level again, could not pull back anymore, so I went long again, and then shorted. Sold out towards the level again, and then it did the same thing. It pulled back, but then it held the level. So for the third time, I went long and then scaled out towards the moving average. That was the last trade. So basically, I was done 10:45. It was a decent day. Closed out with 633 profit. So happy with that. So in closing, a couple of things I need to work better on. Number one is don't make the rookie mistake of doing an ORB when the stock never broke the opening range. So I think another way to do that next time is just to demarcate where the opening range is on the 5 minute before entering, and then not be so trigger happy. But otherwise, and then the second thing is, of course, to look at the stock to see how distended it is, and basically be a little more patient. Maybe take a smaller size if I knew the stock was going to trend one way, but expecting the pullback towards the moving average, and then add more once it proved that the moving average is a good support level. So don't add prior to that pullback, because it can always drop on you as well. So that's point number two. And then point number three would be to just hold the stock a little longer with some smaller shares. Hold it to actually wait for it to break or hit the target levels. Oftentimes I exit a little prematurely on these stocks. So maybe next time can practice by holding 100 shares or so, leave 100 shares on the table and see what happens, and then just exit at break even. So that's it. It was a decent day, and we'll work on those other things tomorrow.